What do you think happens next? If you had to, no fence-sitting.
Yeah.
If you had to predict what you think happens next, what would you predict?
Well, I say this at the end of the Foreign Affairs article that just literally came out a couple hours ago, which is President Trump is on the horns of a dilemma. And he has no golden off-ramp. He's looking for off-ramps, but there's no golden one where he comes out politically ahead. So he's got a choice, sometimes called a Hobbesian choice, where you cut your losses, accept political loss now. And right now, if he pulls back, and what does it mean to pull back? You got to pull your forces back. It's not enough to say you're just doing a pause. If you want to stop for real, you take those aircraft carriers and you send them out somewhere. You send them to Asia, you send them here. You got to do something here. So choice one is you stop your bombing campaign, you cut your losses, you do your best to say we just wanted to destroy missiles, even though nobody will believe it, okay? But that means you accept a modest loss now, or the other is you double down and you go on for more weeks. Go on for more weeks, hoping you'll kill this leader and maybe the next one won't be so bad. Or you'll have some other sort of outcome that you can't imagine. And Trump is nothing. I call him a chaos kid. He thrives in chaos. And he often comes out of this with something happening like when, sort of down the road, you didn't expect it. He probably didn't expect it. But in this case, the price is more likely going to be a political failure of the first order because we have the midterms coming. So if he's got a choice, stop now, cut your losses, accept a limited political defeat, or double down, go on for a few months, go through more stages of this smart bomb trap I'm explaining, and you're really now in Lyndon Johnson territory. Remember I mentioned before, where in Vietnam, he kept escalating, kept moving up the escalation ladder, every rung. He said, well, no, we have escalation dominance. We're just going to double down. We're going to hit them harder the next time. We're going to do this the next time. Sound familiar? And then what happened is it became absolutely clear that this was going nowhere, and the '68 election was coming. And Lyndon Johnson's own Democrats said, Mr. President, we can't ride your horse into that. We got to do something. And the problem is they didn't pull the plug fast enough here. That's how they lost. They don't pull the plug fast enough, so you end up having a bigger loss later.
When you talk about the underbelly that the United States has where they can't prolong these wars, am I right in thinking this is basically a function or a consequence of living in a democracy where every 4 years...
I think it's a function of a war of choice. So when we were attacked in Pearl Harbor, we were attacked. Mm-hmm. We were reluctant to get in World War II. And we didn't get in until we were actually struck at Pearl Harbor. That was enough to really make us angry. We were pissed off as a country, okay? And we were going to get payback, not just for a month, but we were getting some real payback here. And that's how vicious that island hopping campaign was and why it was so vicious here. And that went on. And when we ended the war in dropping those atomic bombs, 22% of the American public wanted us to forget the Japanese surrender and drop more atomic bombs. 22%. We were that angry. So when we are attacked first, we have the politics in our advantage. When we do a war of choice, we can make up all the reasons why it was a good idea to throw the first punch. They were going to hit us. But when we throw that first punch first, that's a war of choice, and this puts the politics in the other camp's advantage. And that's the problem that we're facing here. Iran didn't hit us first. They didn't hit us first in June. They didn't hit us first before that.
So on this point of war of choice,
yeah,
there's really two questions I have front of mind. One is, was Trump right that if he didn't attack, then they would have enriched uranium, they would have made a nuclear weapon, and that would have put not just the region, but the world at danger, in your view? And then the second one is this sort of ongoing debate around the role of Israel in this war. And I think it was Marco Rubio that came out and I think maybe accidentally said that the reason why they attacked Iran was because they heard that Israel were about to attack Iran.
So let's go back to the Friday, the day before we start the bombing campaign. This is February 27, literally 3:15 Washington time. That's when Trump makes the go decision. But what's in his, what is he choosing between? He has an offer on the table from Iran for a better deal than the Obama deal for America. And it is, it's not absolutely perfect. They still want to have some minor enrichment but the verification, lots of things here. Now, maybe it's still not perfect, but President Trump has a choice on that Friday afternoon. He can go back and he can work this deal. He can, after all, deal maker, right? Let's assume he's good at deal making. So he can go back and work the deal. But that's not what he does. What he does is he throws that deal away. And also the Supreme Leader, when he killed that, the Supreme Leader was on board with that deal too. And what do we do instead? We go through regime change. So the choices here, Stephen, were, before we got to stage 2, we were in stage 1. Stage 1, we had hit Fordo, there were negotiations, and Iran's coming up with a better deal than the Obama deal. And what does he do? He goes to stage 2 instead. So I don't think this story you're hearing, they were going to do X, Y, or Z. There was a deal on the table. And
why did Rubio say that then? Why did he say that they attacked because Israel were going to attack? Okay, I want to play this video, which is what I'm referring to.
Okay.
If we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
So what that shows you is that it's the tail wagging the dog, that Israel is going to attack. As I'm saying, just happened in June. It's a replay of what happened in June. Israel may well have, we don't know why Israel decided to attack and kill the Supreme Leader. It was actually Israeli bombs who killed the Supreme Leader, and also those other replacement leaders as well. But Israel may well have been thinking that, my goodness, Trump is getting too close to a deal. That's what happened in June. Trump was on the edge of a deal with Iran, and then Israel goes and kills the negotiators, you see. So just think about that for a moment. Trump is negotiating with the Iranians, and then they say, well, okay, come back the next day. And what is there the next day? Israeli bombs killing them.
So, I mean, that's not a great way to handle a partnership.
Well, it's just showing you we had another choice. We could have told Israel not to do it. We could have told Israel, if you do this, we're going to cut off all your military aid for the next 3 years. That would put some pressure on Israel. Now, then Trump would have to pay a price politically. So I'm not saying that's an easy thing to do. Don't get me wrong. But we need to understand that Trump, these are the pressures for escalation in the escalation trap. So I'm trying to explain why this isn't just randomly happening, Stephen. It's not like, oh my goodness, I can't follow what's occurring. So that's why when Trump says in today's briefing, talks about stopping the air campaign, is he going to stop Israel's campaign? That's the question that did not come up today. It's I put it on my X. One of the big questions that did not come up is, President Trump, are you going to call Netanyahu and tell him to stop bombing Iran?
Does Trump control Netanyahu, in your view?
Well, again, it's about pressures here. It's about what are the ways you don't. It's not about a matter of like a personal loyalty relationship. This is politics of the first order. That's what I'm trying to explain. So for President Trump to stop Netanyahu from doing this will be paying a price. He will have a big part of his MAGA constituency is very pro, not just Israel, pro-Netanyahu version of Israel. So this is the tension in the politics that I'm trying to explain, which is why you don't really want to start the trap in the first place.
And I asked you a second ago, no fence sitting, what happens next in this war based on everything you've studied for the last 30 years, the 20 years of doing simulations?
I think it's more likely than not that maybe not in the next week or two. I've said on my Substack, it's more likely than not we will get to a limited ground deployment here because of the enriched material that is floating around, and we know it's dispersing. We don't know where it is. And there could be literally hundreds of rooms, not much bigger than this size, maybe 2 or 3 times this size that we're in, that could be used to fashion a Fat Man-style A-bomb. Not to miniaturize it to put on a warhead. That would be more sophisticated. But if what you want to do is you want to have a Hiroshima bomb that can kill 75,000 people in a second, or 10 seconds, that is what they are in that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about can they miniaturize the bomb to put it on the nose cone of a missile. They don't need it. That's very sophisticated stuff. We couldn't do that for 10 years.
So I guess there's two questions that come to mind. The first is, to understand someone's behavior, you have to understand their motivations. And I think a lot about where Trump is in his career, legacy, how much that matters to him. It appears, from what I've seen, the whole thing around him wanting to win the Nobel Peace Prize, the Peace Board, the being the president that stops all it appears that he's thinking about how he's going to be remembered. And when I'm looking at some of his interviews recently, he's saying things like, I don't want it to be the case that in 10 years' time or in 5 years' time, the US have to go back in again because I didn't do a good job. And it made me start to believe that actually one of the reasons why we might escalate this war further from a United States perspective is because legacy changes in hindsight. And if we think about George W. Bush...
I think you're putting your finger on it, Stephen.
George W. Bush's legacy now is completely tarnished because of this war and actually how it ended.
Yep.
But it's a mistake in hindsight.
But also now mirror image that to the Iranians. Why aren't they thinking about their legacy? Think about that for a moment.
Sure.
Why would the supreme leader, 86 years old, decide he's not going to take too many more precautions? How many more months does he have cancer apparently? How many more months does he got? How does he want to go out? How does he really want to go out? What's he want to be remembered for? A coward? Or does he want to be remembered as somebody who stood up for Iran, the revolution, the whole thing he built his whole life for? You talk about Trump. So when I get into when the cameras go off and I get a chance to, again, let's just say go to the West Wing, I'm not seeing people being picky, minor, petty. I see them worried about their legacy. The national security advisors, their assistants, they're worrying about their legacy. Do they want to go down in the history of American history as X, Y, or Z? And this is how humans are. It doesn't stop with how much money do you have? It's what's going to happen with your legacy.
So with that in mind, if you think Trump is legacy motivated, does that increase the probability?
In part. I want to be careful. Yeah. In part. It's always a balance.
He can't be re-elected, so I'm that's not motivating him because, you play differently if you think you can win a second term, which I knew would be important to him. But if he is legacy motivated now, when you think about which direction he's going to go in, it does appear on the balance of things that he's not going to want it to be left a mess.
And the biggest mess that could really embarrass him in his legacy with international is if Iran has a nuclear bomb and they detonate a test, say next September. Let's just imagine what would happen next September. So people need to think about, the discussion of Iran and nuclear bombs here is not very strategic. It's to scare you. It's, they're going to get a bomb and the first one's going to go on Tel Aviv, the second one's going to go on New York. I don't think that's the sequence. Why would they, if they're willing to commit suicide to take out Tel Aviv, they don't need 16 bombs, okay? If they're willing to have their entire population destroyed they just need one bomb, take out Tel Aviv, they're done, right? That's not what's going on. They're following the North Korea plan. The North Korea plan that North Korea figured out when we went through this with North Korea in the 90s, okay, the very same thing, except we didn't do the bombing because it was not going to, we avoided the trap. What they want is multiple bombs at the same time. So what they want to do, if they can do this, is have, say, 5 bombs working at the same time. And the first bomb goes off as a test in the mountains. And then what do we say? Oh, they blew it. They're stupid. They blew their one test. And then they do a second test. Still in their mountains, okay? When we dropped the first bomb on Hiroshima, it wasn't clear we had any more. When we dropped the second one, nobody needed to wait for a third or fourth. Nobody really, they knew more would come. You see what I mean? So with Iran, this is, again, we're talking about now, let's call it the brown belt or black belt strategy here, that they are, and notice they have been very smart in their escalation. What you would do is the North Korea strategy, which is, again, you want multiple bombs, and then you want to do some tests. And even if one doesn't quite work, you want to have another. You want to have multiple bombs so that you can do multiple tests, you see. And that is how North Korea basically stopped Trump trying to kill the leader. So notice that Trump wants to say it was just his winning personality because, Trump is so charming here. But North Korea now has 60 working nuclear weapons, as, best we can tell. And the idea that we're going to start killing leaders in North Korea anytime soon, I'm not sure that's going to happen.
They're kind of immune now, right?
Well, and notice that Ukraine had a bunch of nuclear weapons in the 90s, gave them up. And there's a lot of people in Ukraine right now who are saying, boy, I wish we had those nuclear weapons back or else we wouldn't be fighting this war. So you start to look at the history. Why does America have nuclear weapons here? Are we an evil country? And the reason we have is because we're evil? We want it for our security. So why doesn't Iran want it for their security? So this is the strategy part that we have to, the politics, Stephen, I keep trying to talk about.
So you're saying your prediction is that we're going to move to stage 3, where Trump puts...
Okay, I'll go 75-25.
75% which way?
That we will send in some ground forces to get that dispersed material. The only 25% would be if somehow magically the Iranians gave it to us. So that's where the 25% comes from, because there is some chance that there's some, I don't want to, we live in the real world here. But I think the problem we're going to face is it's going to become more, and if you're in Iran right now, exactly why aren't you fashioning the nuclear weapon? We're already killing you. We can pause for months and say we won't kill you, and then you wake up one day and you're dead. We've done this movie now several times on Iran. Your best chance of survival is a nuclear weapon. And so we now know that. Our intel knows that. Israel now knows it. We've taken these options. So unless Trump will make a deal, that's that 25%. So I think if he makes a deal, then there's a chance that Iran will go forward here.
If the 75% path plays out,
yep,
we put boots on the ground.
Yep.
What happens then?
Now we're at stage 3. Now we've moved to stage 3 because we have to search so we will start by deploying ground forces in a very limited area. Say we're going to go to Escalation, it's called. That's the do we have a...
you could try and write on there. Does that work?
The thing I'm trying to explain, assume this is Iran.
Yeah.
Okay. We will start by putting in a small footprint. And again, we have several options here to do it. And so the hunt will be for the enriched material. But let's say that we even find it, Stephen. How do we know that in the intervening almost a year since the bombing, 10 months since the bombing, how do we know they haven't enriched more somewhere else? Because this is what happened with the WMD and Iraq and Saddam Hussein in the 90s through 2003. We had inspectors in. We could never be sure there wasn't material. And the problem was over time, the fear got worse and worse and worse. And the fear is a nuclear handoff or the radiological handoff. You hand off some of that material to Hezbollah, to the Houthis.
Who are Hezbollah and the Houthis? They're like
They
terrorist
are,
groups?
We call them terrorist groups. And Hezbollah, which is this famous terrorist group, started in 1982. How did Hezbollah start? Where did it come from?
Is it the CIA again?
No,
Okay.
it's Israel.
Okay.
Israel invades southern Lebanon in June of 82 with 78,000 combat soldiers, 3,000 tanks and armored vehicles. So think about that. That's like invading Chicago with 78,000. Or LA with 78,000, okay? So they invade southern Lebanon with 78,000, Israel does. 1 month later, Hezbollah is born as a resistance movement. So Hezbollah was born out of resistance to Israel. They have hated Israel from the beginning because that's how they were born, you see. So what you have is you have a group that's been radical since 82. This has been going on since 82. Israel just can't put that Hezbollah group out of business. And what are they doing literally this week? They're trying to depopulate this Beirut, the city of Beirut. Because what happens when you go up against terrorist groups, which we haven't described, but the terrorist group here is like a group that's in a sea of people, okay? And you keep saying, all I want to do is get rid of that terrorist group. The problem is that in all that effort, military effort to get rid of the terrorist group, you do kill them, but they regenerate and they regenerate and they regenerate, just as Hezbollah has for, 45 years almost. Okay, and so what do you then push to do? Get rid of all the people.
So you think I'll just genocide?
I don't want to use those terms because I've written about that. That has certain very specific, so that's a whole conversation here. But I just want to point out, how is it that Israel got itself into the idea they were going to expel large portions of the 2 million out of Gaza? That happened because they got into stage 3 of the escalation trap in Gaza. So this isn't just about America. So we're only talking about the escalation frameworks with respect to this one conflict, really. It applies much more broadly. I've developed these since I taught for the Air Force because I needed to find a way to help our government, our military, understand how the transition from the bombing or the military piece to the outcome. And what's in the middle is the military, the bombs change politics. They change politics in the enemy. They change politics for us. For us, we don't want to lose, and that's why we got stuck in 2 forever wars. And now we may well just get right back into another one. Not because Trump wants to. So he's being sucked into it.
So what happens after stage 3?
After stage 3, this is what America has faced in Vietnam, and President Biden faced this in spades here. When you try to pull out after you're in stage 3 and end these ongoing conflicts here, usually it ends poorly for your legacy. And you saw that with Lyndon Johnson, and you saw that with President Biden. President Trump is the one who was negotiating with the Taliban to pull out, but President Trump wouldn't leave, not leave. He didn't leave before. Who did he hand it off to? He handed it off to Biden. Biden pulled out, and what has Biden's legacy been? It's been negative ever since. If you look at his opinion polls, President Biden, you will see he was riding high until he withdrew from Afghanistan, and he never recovered. Yes, inflation hurt too. The bigger hit was the Afghanistan problem. And this is why President Trump is really stuck. You see, he's on that horns of the dilemma. Does he want to accept the short-term price, which is real, or does he want to go and double down? And then you face the potential long-term price of becoming LBJ and President Biden.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.